From your inputs to your outputs, map your process, because that'll be the rubric and the framework that you use for when and how resources are allocated properly. On this episode, we're going to talk about process. Why? I'll tell you why, Bob. Because
you didn't even introduce us. People who are just tuning in have
no
idea who.
They know what's up. I'm T. This is Bob. No Followers Podcast. First Strike Incubator. We're going to talk about process because although we are hard good manufacturing specific, or some people say Pacific.
Who says that?
Idiots.
Although we're a speech impediment. Are you making fun of people?
It's not. If you say Pacific instead of specific, that's not a speech impediment. If you have a list, right? You say specific, right? Hey, I'm Mike Tyson, and I'm going to tell you something specific. That's a.
You wouldn't
that's
say
a
that
list.
if he was sitting here.
If he were sitting here, I wouldn't be within arm's reach. I'm nowhere within anywhere his footwork can get to me. But that's a speech impediment. I wouldn't make fun of him for that. But if he said, hey, I'm going to tell you pacifically, I'd be like, hey, that's not
a speech impediment too.
No, that's pacifically instead of specifically. It's a different word.
Just wasting edit.
Keep all this in. Pacifically, this stuff.
Do you even know what we're talking about anymore?
Yeah. Welcome to another episode of No Followers Podcast. I'm T. This is Bob, and we're going to talk about process today. Why? I'll tell you why. Because process is the great unifier. Although we are hard good manufacturing specific in the incubator and the commercialization that we do, it's a conversation I have a lot with people who work in white collar.
With yourself?
Yeah, with myself. I've worked in blue collar and white collar. You have.
I've done it.
You have as well.
Yes.
And
with no collar.
I usually don't even wear sleeves. There's a lot of things that don't cross over, but the one thing that does cross over is process. And I think having a good process, even for, I would say, especially for in-house roles, a good process goes a long way. When I say in-house roles, I mean like marketing, accounting, things that aren't customer.
That takes time too.
Yeah.
So what do we want the viewers and the listeners to get out of this? Because that's our goal all the time is what can we impart to you that's going to help you get to a decision faster or make less mistakes than we've done in the past. You got your hand up. Nobody.
Okay, I didn't know if it was a raise your hand situation. So
I didn't say anything yet. You just cut me off again.
Well, you called on me. That's why I raised the hand.
I didn't call on you.
I set you up. You took the bait.
I'm going to raise my hand just to shut you up.
I'm not going to call on you. I know, dummy. The thing that I have is do a process map. From your inputs to your outputs, map your process, because that'll be the rubric and the framework that you use for when and how resources are allocated properly.
And step one to do that is to journal what you're doing as an activity that gets you somewhere, because that's going to change, but that also sets you up to make it better when other people come on, because you usually do it by yourself.
Product placement, check back soon for our First Strike Incubator co-branded journals, which will be coming out soon. Anyways.
Was that some kind of weird voice?
No.
Is that your announcer voice?
That's just my voice.
No, the journal thing, the co-branded journal for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So we are creating products to help you do this mapping, which T just mentioned in some very odd voice that I don't really know what it is.
It's hurtful when you tell people their voice is odd. So I'll give you an example of a process, and I'm going to use my sister Alexis, who works with me here, but also works in marketing full-time elsewhere. For internal processes, right? You are trying to figure out if your resources are allocated properly and if you have the right process to do these things. So if one of your outputs is community events, right? That's one thing that you handle as marketing. You can go in and you can say, what's everything that goes into one of these events? We have to do flyers, blah, 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 blah. You get everything down and then you go, okay, how do we get from here to there? What are the inputs? We get information from this person. We put it to this person. It goes here and there and here and there.
But you also have to put time.
You have to put your
So it has to be
timestamps.
calendar, yes.
I mean, if you're really doing your process map really properly, you would have symbols and timestamps, and you would have how many touches things have.
Or just to set out a realistic,
yes,
calendar.
Yeah.
You need time. Like it takes 5 days to do this. It should be 3 weeks of marketing.
Well, see, that's the thing that you just got through that I think a lot of people skip, which is the should be. So you have your process map and you go, all right, it takes me, so this is the difference between soft good and hard good, or white collar and blue collar, internal process or external. With the hard good, it's easy to grasp, right? We'll talk about bike frames. If you say to me, how long does it take for you to build a bike frame? And I say 8 hours. The next question is, how long should it take you to build a bike frame? And we can do a process map and find out capacity, throughput time, bottleneck, all those things.
But based on your unique resources.
Yes, based on how you do it.
What we get a lot in the incubator is, ideally, we're going to make 10,000 a day.
Yes.
And I was like, where?
No. This is an actual activity for where you're at right now, how you do it. Because then you can track over time where you get better and how you get better, right? So it's easy with the hard good. And I guess my premise is, even as an internal service like marketing or accounting, you still have outputs and you still have inputs. And monitoring those things and mapping them will help you put processes in place, right? So if I say to you, if you're in charge of my marketing, and I say, all right, Bob, how many ads did we run last year? And you say, I don't know. And I say, okay, how much did each ad cost? And you go, I don't know. And I go, well, how much did we make from each campaign? And you say, I don't know. Part of that is your failure. But part of that is if I'm your manager, part of that's my failure because I didn't give you the tools to successfully do that. I didn't effectively communicate what was expected of you and give you the tools to do it. And part of that is process. Do we have processes in place where Bob knows that he needs to track each of the ad campaigns, what metrics we want from those ad campaigns, all these things? Without the processes, you're going to have garbage outputs.
And with that process, though, and you can do this as a one person when you have to start hiring people, you have to set the expectations for yourself and hold yourself accountable. And then you just map those to the people you're hiring, right? If you don't know the expectation, you're going to have to go through it to figure it out. I'm not doing it perfectly, but this is what I did. And then new people should be able to look at it and make it better if they know anything about why you're hiring them. Yeah. But that role and responsibility delegation, which you're getting to roundabout with your expectations.
Everything I do
is really important when you start bringing on co-founders, team members, because if you just keep getting the same person, like a bunch of T's, they're all going to do the same thing. It's not going to help.
What a dream world you would be living in.
I would
if you had a bunch of me's.
Have 7 minutes of brain activity left. Going back to the earlier conversation.
But so, I mean, what you're saying, though, it's what I would call like asset alignment or resource alignment, right?
Did you just call me an ass?
Yeah, I mean, usually. So, and a good exercise that you can do this in your everyday life if you have employees is you can go, all right, Bob is my employee. Every scenario, you're my employee, Bob. It's just
very odd world you live in.
It's the upside down. So
it's all good. We're all work for together.
But a good thing is I say to you, all right, Bob, here's index cards. I want you to write down first what you think your job description is.
What is this, 1960? Can't I just put it in a Google Doc?
No Google Doc.
Okay.
Here. We're not in the cloud. We're here on Earth.
Okay.
So you write it down, right? And then I take the index cards and I write down what I think your job description is. Then we put those on the whiteboard and we see if they align.
Hold on a minute, though.
Yeah.
If you hired me, you should have hired me with a job description.
I mean, once you've been in your role, right? You've been in your role for 5 years and I'm having some sort of internal process. I'm having some sort of internal problem. I'm doing more work and you're leaving early every day and I'm trying to figure out why. If I don't have a process and everything in place to know what your job is and what you should be doing, maybe you're leaving early every day because you're not doing your work. Maybe
I'm really good at it.
That's exactly it. Maybe you're leaving early every day because I'm not challenging you enough, and that will lead to job dissatisfaction.
I'm really good at it, and I can just leave early because I did it all.
Like I said, we're living in the upside down. You know what I mean? But so that's the first part, is understanding job responsibilities. The second part is I say to you, write down on your note cards what you think your 5 best value adds or qualities are. And then I write them down.
Only 5?
And now we see if they align, right? So if you go, you're in marketing. I know Adobe, I'm a really good copy editor, and blah, blah, blah. And I write down, you're really good at customer facing outreach and all, and they're not on there. Then we go, wait, hang on. I thought you were doing this stuff. And you go, oh no, I don't know Adobe. Okay, well, let's get you trained on Adobe. Like, part of my job as a manager is to make sure you have the tools you need to do the job you were hired for. If you lied about ability, that's one thing. But if you said, hey, I know this, but I need a little bit more training, right, let's get you the training so it doesn't take you 10 days to edit copy. Let's get you the training and the process so that request comes in, it goes to you, you do your part, our system and process kicks it to me, I approve, back to you, out the door.
But the nuance to that is also when you talk about asset alignment, and we always talk about people alignment, a lot of times when companies aren't working at optimal efficiency, it's because the right people are in the wrong roles.
Right.
So sometimes you look at that and maybe your marketing staff, Bob, doesn't like the Adobe side of it, but he's really good at these three things.
Video editing. Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
Yep.
I got to find something I'm good at one of these days. And then you know who you have to hire next to fill that if there's capacity for it. But I also think it's not always about putting more skills on people. It's having people go to the things they're really good at or want to be part of and let them take ownership of it. Because you're going to, as an owner or as a manager, your team's going to flourish when you don't have to micromanage. Yeah. If T's making me write down every week index cards what I did, I'm not going to be there that long. Yeah.
It's not every week.
Okay, I was just checking.
I mean, like as an exercise, like a check-in. Like, let's say you do your annual review and you've been there for 3 years and we want to make sure we're still aligned, right? Let's say I hire Jimmy and Jimmy's going to be a welder, or I'll make Jimmy, Jessica, whoever, and they're going to be a welder. And they come in and they're welding out 3 frames a week. And I know how long it should take to weld the frame out. Well, it might not just be that Jimmy or Jessica is bad at their job. It could be that they are a very talented welder. They don't know what they should be doing. Maybe they don't have clear communication from me. Maybe they need to be trained on how to TIG weld aluminum. They can weld everything else, but they just need some training. And now, boom, they can start knocking these things out.
But
and then they have job satisfaction.
But, right.
Yeah.
But the other thing there is you shouldn't wait a year. You should be in real time all the time. And we do this with a lot. Like, there is immediate feedback and there's scheduled feedback. Like, you should be watching that so that you don't wait a year to figure out that they got misaligned somewhere.
And the only way you have that is with process.
Absolutely.
So if you don't
and
have
metrics.
Right. Well, if you don't, like, if I say to you, Bob, I want you to put together a dashboard for me for all the ad campaigns we did for the year. And you were like, okay.
I'm going to get those index cards out and then you paste them to the table.
And then I'm like, let's check back in a month. And then 29 out of 30 days pass and you go, hey, I'm ready to talk about that. And I go, great, what do you have? And you go, I don't know what a dashboard is. Well, there's a bunch of problems there, right? You know, like, for one thing, why did I check in with you 29 days later? Why did you not come to me and say you weren't clear? It's a double failure of communication. But if I said to you, hey, Bob, I want you to put together a dashboard for me with metrics on the current number of ad campaigns we have running, which outlets we're using to run them, what our ROI is on them, and how they directly affected sales, then you can go and start putting it together and go, hey, here's what I need. I need you to get with IT to get me the following information. You know what I mean? And now we're working together. And then you feel like you did a good job. You wrapped it up. I have what I need because now I can monitor what our ad spends are and what our return is and what's out there at any point in time.
But the other part of that, in your first example where I didn't tell you I didn't know what a dashboard was, that's a culture issue. Mm-hmm. That's almost a punitive management system where you're afraid of not being perfect all the time, which is impossible. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole other thing about these kind of processes. It puts the right people at the right part of the bench or in the right seat. Yeah. And then they're all taking ownership in the process because they all believe in the unified goals of the company.
Yes. Well, and it's like, it's something I say frequently, and it's not an original thought, but I like it, which is...
Do you have any original thoughts?
No, everything I just hear and repeat. As a manager...
New nickname, Parrot.
As a manager, your job is not to do the thing the best, right? As the manager of this, I don't need to be the best welder in this building. Chances are, I am. But I don't need to be.
I thought we were checking ego at the door.
What I need to be as the manager is the person that can recognize the ability of my staff and put them in the proper position to create the most value from what they can do. So if Bob's a carpenter and Jessica's a welder, and I have Bob welding and Jessica doing woodwork, I have a misalignment. My job as a manager is to get them in the right places, give them the tools they need to succeed, and have the processes in place to check back on them. I don't need to know exactly what they're doing day to day. I need to know how many doors you made in carpentry and how many bikes she welded out and whatever.
Well, as we wrap this up though, but by tracking that tied to metrics allows you to have real conversations that don't get into the personal.
Yep.
Right? Because everybody takes things personally, and you're not there to get into a personality battle. You are there to say, this is what we need. Here's the metrics. And I see it falling off. Your welding skills, suck.
Yeah. Well,
you used to be good and now you're not.
Right.
What is it?
Yep.
Right. But that's a number. It's not like, because I just don't like T anymore. Because he brings his ego in the door every day.
Well, if he says like, hey, the welder's always broken, or we don't have the right fixtures, like now as a manager, I can go, okay, what do we need for you to do your job? If I've given you all those things and I've documented it, and I know you have a good process includes training, checking in, following up, all that stuff, and you're still falling short, well, now that's a different conversation. But if we've never had a process to establish those things, check your inputs, your outputs, what you need, satisfy all that stuff, that's a recipe for disaster. So I guess that was the point of this conversation, was to go through and say, this is one major crossover between blue collar, white collar, internal and external processes, or internal and external divisions and departments. Is you can always have a process map, track your inputs and your outputs, and have the right resources in the right place at the right time.
Excellent. Until next time.
All right, Bob, it was good to see you.
Support the sponsors.
Follow us, like,
DM us so we know what we should be talking about for the future.
DM Bob. I'm good. I'm good on DMs. Just send them to Bob.
You don't want any?
Nah, I'm good.
Nice.
I'm just kidding. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.